Guys, welcome back to my channel. On today's episode, we're going to be trying to make ML Ray, or like Dance Dance Revolution Ray, work for me in aggro. It's like the long-standing tradition of me pulling for new ML5s and trying to force them in aggro drafts, even though ML Ray does not seem to be suited for that playstyle. Or like any playstyle, if I'm being too honest. But yeah, this is the gear I'm using. He's really slow. He's like Destina slow, like 100 base speed. So even with speed gear with around like 15, 16 average, he like barely cracks 250, or like he's just short. I'm using Shuna's artifact because it gives ER and effectiveness, but like I played around a bit with like Doctor's Bag or Ning Ning's artifact thing, but like there doesn't seem to be like the greatest fit for any of them. And to be honest, it didn't really seem to matter which artifacts he used because a lot of the time, like in showcase videos, like this happens a lot of the time where either you lose because they didn't do anything or you win anyway despite them doing nothing. And that's kind of like the vibe of today's video. I'm gonna be really honest. I pull for ML Ray because I like the design, like Plague Doctors, like wow, edgy, fancy, cool, we love. But yeah, so I like that. So I was like, I'm gonna pull it and I'm gonna try and make it work. And guys, I really tried to make it work, but it just doesn't seem to be in the cards. I'm just gonna tell you straight up, if you are pulling for meta, do not pull for him like in his current state. He's kind of like Exodia, where you kind of need like the planets to align to make him work, but Exodia wins you the game. ML Ray like sits there and he's like cool looking, but he doesn't do too much. So let me describe what you need to pull this off. So first of all, it needs to be like an actual fair and honest bruiser match. There can be no aggression on either side, because he does nothing against cleave or aggro, so he just dies. And if your team is too aggressive, you're just gonna win before ML Ray gets to do anything. And then you also ideally would like it if the opponent had no immunity or like cleanse of any sort, so he can get maximum value. But what kind of tank down players run without cleansers? Like, please explain. And you also need RNG for a bit, because you know how his S2 gives like a buff to your ally so they inflict toxin? Yeah, that actually has an ER check too. So if your unit's applying it has no ER, it can get resisted, or it can just get 15%ed anyway, so that's a big L. And then units like Designer Lilibet or Edward just kind of like fuck up your team too. So yeah, he's kind of difficult to use, but I'm going to try to anyway, so stay tuned for that. Anyways, as always, if you like my content, please like, subscribe, leave a hate comment, whatever, self-shill over, let's get into it. And yes, let's get into our first match. So I'm going to first pick Conquer Lilies here because, as you know, ML Ray does not strip while being a very debuff-oriented character. So that's already one of the things that is working against him. And I'll explain more as you get into it, but this match is one of the only matches I got ML Ray to work, so please prepare yourself for some frenzy gaming. So my opponent picks Arrowell and Destina here, which is like really weird because the Scarowell Destina meta is like low-key on its way out, but no complaints from me. I pick ML Ray here pretty comfortably. I would have picked Spectre Tenebria to be honest, but they banned it, so like I had nothing to pick, so I was like, let's have fun with our new fancy ML Ray unit. Anyway, while we're talking about this draft, I'll explain my build a bit. Like you saw it before, how I tried to make it as fast as possible, and that's because the S2 pushes, and I was like, hey, cool, that's nice, like that might have some use aggressively. And I didn't build that much effectiveness because it's not him himself that inflicts venom. It's like his team, if it makes sense. So you're not gonna be debuffing any high ER cleansers like Destina anyway. So like, why bother, My opponent also picks Winter and what's her face? Light Aiden here. So I pick Zakok because he's good into Aiden. Honestly, should have picked Bryce area here, but like whatever. My opponent picks Carrot here to counter my Landy because Landy's really good into his other two DPSs. And I ban Destina knowing that my opponent will more than likely just ban Landy instead. Because if I ban Carrot, he's wide open for Landy to tear his team apart. And what do you know? I was right. It's kind of like a hobby of mine. I give myself the effectiveness imprint here, but again, like I don't think he's a really weird character in the way that he's debuff oriented, but it's not him that's applying the debuffs other than like sleep. But like who cares about like sleep when the core mechanic is him putting toxin down and injuring people. So like that's one of the things that's weird about him. Like sure he gives an effectiveness buff, but like against like 300 res Destinas, what is 50 effectiveness gonna do for you if you didn't build it religiously? Not too much, I gotta say. Anyway, I just open up here. I press all my buttons, non-attack skill buttons here because like Winter's about to punish me incredibly hard for using them. So you might as well just like dump them all and like cope and try for the best. Like hope for the best, you know? I was thinking about killing Carrot or Aiden, but I kind of think that Aiden might have more pressure because with immunity and some resistance on my units, I'm not too sure if Carrot's gonna do too much, and this team could technically grind out his team just very, very slowly and painfully on my part. Yeah. And yeah, let me explain his stats. So that's why my ML Ray doesn't have like 5 billion effectiveness. It's just because effectiveness doesn't do too much on him. Like, it's nice if he has some like middling effectiveness so he can effectively target some mid ER units. But other than that, it's nothing like too major. And then here, like, wow, we're making it work. We're giving Carrot injury. We're putting her to sleep. Is this the MLRA showcase? Like, find out next time. But yeah, so I think that's like the best build I could think of for him. Um, you make him decently fast, like 250 with like solid ER and effectiveness. Like again, he does not have too much ER, so dedicated debuffers like Peyra are gonna rip you to shreds. Or Solitaria or like AOL and Peyra are like big ones, where I'll explain later. But yeah, and I'll talk more about why ML Ray is kind of awkward. So like his Venom playstyle is like very interesting. Like don't get me wrong, ML Ray is a very fun unit. It's just like to get him to work is a whole other struggle. Like the small amount of effectiveness is actually quite nice to sleep this Arrow. It wasn't what I was expecting to happen, but you know, I'll take it. And I don't press my non-attack skills here because if Winter starts to stack too much against me, I'm kind of boned. So that's why I'm refraining from using any skills. But yeah, as I was saying, Venom is quite slow because you need to hit the debuff and then you need to wait for the opponent to take a turn. And then that debuff needs to not be resisted and it also needs to be more importantly not cleansed off or have immunity on. And his S3 just doesn't do enough in my opinion to justify that kind of playstyle. Like if they're at max injury, it does like goaded damage, but think about it. Like if you hit a unit enough for them to be at maximum injury, like what kind of unit doesn't die? Like people have been theorizing using Injury Bellion, but like if Injury Bellion hits you enough that you're max injury, you're most likely almost dead anyway. Anyway, we
Well,
get
she
to
tried.
see
At least,
the
she.
one and only time I got to see Emil Ray uses S3, and it did fucking nothing because I couldn't get enough Venom on my opponent in a meaningful way. But, you know, it looked really cool. His carrot and his SCR are asleep, so like, hooray, I guess. And we're just going to use the Hawk here to finish off Winter, so my team doesn't get eviscerated by Winter S3s. And you'll also notice that I am one of the crazy people who uses the resource reduction EE on Zahak instead of the attack buff. But that's a conversation for another time. And we did it. We're slowly but surely wearing down his team. And now that his team consists of Carrot and SCR, well, like Conqueror Lilius and DJB can actually grind down my team. So my opponent, understandably, quits here. On to the next match. I, again, first pick Conqueror Lilius because DJB doesn't, not DJB, ML Ray doesn't strip, so he needs a stripper. And so I picked my best stripper that I have, my Cash Conqueror Lilius. I pick DJB for this Lua, just in case I need to play more standard. And then I picked ML Ray because I just felt like donating all my points today. I did not pity ML Ray. I actually got 2 copies of them in 110 pull at around like 70 pulls in, so I was like pretty happy about that. That's why I was like so gung-ho about building him and stuff. Anyway, my opponent realizes that I'm picking a lot of debuffs already. Like there's 2 from Conqueror Lilius, like DGB can technically blind. And ML Ray makes everyone a debuffer, which is like which sounds cool in concept, but like in practice, it's like kind of sus. I pick Arya here because Arya is just very good into Edward and Stenny and like kind of Dilibet too. So she has like 1v4 solo potential. And I need more reach for Stenny and maybe more solo potential. So I also pick ML Vivian. And ML Vivian has that unique perk of she doesn't really care about Lua's cooldown resets either. Like she can just soul burn because she's holding book, or she can just like take hits from her DPSs and boom, she'll be ready to have S3 first turn. But this is the one of the weak points I messaged about ML Ray is that he invites in these like really debuff heavy teams, and if you don't pick correctly, it can be a very tough time to navigate this kind of draft. I end up banning Lua because my team doesn't deal too well with Lua, to be honest. And I'm just like coping that I'll have to deal with the Stenia somehow. My team currently does not deal with her too well. And so I didn't really want to debuff anybody. So I just S1 with Conqueror Lilius. But my Arya was like, oh no fam, I'm about to land all my debuffs. So I'm like, great. Thank you. I can't wait. And so I just S3 with Sylvan Sage Vivian here. Like this is what I meant. Like a lot of matches with ML Ray just boil down to him pressing S2, and that's like his like claim to fame. He's like a mid-speed CR booster that provides like some chip damage. And yeah, since my Arya was pulled for the S1 and landed all her debuffs, she actually gets cut by designer a little bit, and then his team cuts me back because of the CR push, and my opponent is focusing ML Ray down a lot, but like I don't know why he bothered doing so because he doesn't do anything. Like man, I wish he was good, but Smilegate really does like to protect the what is it, viability of their ML5, so we never know how ML Ray might be buffed in the future. Like, you know, Astromancer Elena was like a giant meme when she came out, and now she's like insanely broken in cleave matches where you pick degen units like Armin and stuff. But this is what I meant, like in the beginning when I said like ML Ray sometimes like doesn't do anything. This is it. He literally just did the S3 and not the S3, the S2 push up, not even the S3 because he's focus based for whatever reason. So he basically pushed them up and he provided some chip damage against like designer a little bit and Senya a bit. Like look at that, 2 venom stacks on Senya. And we win the match because my Arya and Sylvan Sage Vivian were a good matchup into his DPS cores. Well, not Senya, but like whatever. We take these wins. And then for the next match, I'm going to be showcasing one of ML Ray's biggest weaknesses. So if you noticed from the matchmaking screen, you'll know that I matched into KJ. And I watched his stream for a little bit in the morning, and I know that he's streaming right now. So I didn't stream snipe him, but like, you know, I might as well have because I knew he was picking ML Ray first pick for all his games, and I know that his two fastest units currently geared on his account was Ran and Leica. So I pre-banned those
That
two
bitch
out,
is
and then I
so
picked his third
fucking
fastest
evil.
unit, which is Conquer Lilius and Steny, against Ray. So I'm already in a very aggressive position. And then he picks Zio to speed contest me, and then he picks his Commander Pavel. I was a little surprised by the Commander Pavel pick, but I knew from watching some of his videos that he does like to pick Faithless Litica as an activator. So I promptly picked Faithless Litica to steal that from him, and because she's a good guiding light hero into Zio. I also picked Acid to speed contest just in case he wants to pick other fast units that I didn't know he had built. And he was talking about how a fast Para on crit neck would have been good here, but he didn't have a gear. Like I watched the VOD after the fact, but it's kind of tragic. My Faithless Litica is not the fastest, but DDR has a base speed of 100. So even though he does push by 20% on the CR bar, getting a 100 base speed unit to like faster than 280 is very difficult. So I was confident that my Acid or Faithless Litica could outspeed even if he bans Conquer Lilius. And so my opponent bans, not my opponent bans. So KJ here proceeds to pick Designer a little bit. And Zahak here, which I thought was kind of surprising. I thought he might have picked Bellion to be anti-book, but you know, I see the chance. I take it. My opponent bans Acid here because he is threatened by Acid killing his Sahak, but with some insider info, my Conqueror Lilius is able to outspeed the rest of his team really comfortably. And I was thinking about whether I want to S3 or not, but looking at Designer a little bit speed, I didn't want to risk it, so I just S2 with Ida, and yeah, he kind of gets cleaved, and I feel kind of bad because he was filming content for DDR, right? But I donated like almost 75 points trying out ML Ray for this video, so I had to like farm a few back, you know?
Yes,
And
I
I'm
did
really
that.
sorry,
And you
KJ,
would do it too for a check.
for cleaving you. I'm like, I won't do it again, promise. I won't pre-ban your units like that and do you dirty, but what can you do? It was a nice test, but like basically, yeah. If you guys haven't noticed, like this meta is really aggressive, so ML Ray already does not fit into that like at all. So that's like another consideration because he needs a minimum of 4 turns on a 100 base speed unit with no extra turn mechanic. So that's very, very interesting because his S2 gives 3 focus, and then you need to S1 twice or guarantee a dual attack somehow. And then you need to take another turn to S3, and that is just too much, too long of a gameplay loop. My opponent here drafts the debuff, the anti-debuff duo of Edward and Designer Lilibet, so I already am in a very, very bad spot. Because if ML Ray doesn't press S2, he contributes literally nothing except for like some piddly ass sleeps on his turns, and I think that's like the biggest weakness. My opponent also picked Senya here because Senya also has the potential to solo my team. And in hindsight, I think I should have just banned Senya and not care about Aiden because I could either take care of Aiden through Flitica making her S2 go on cooldown or like just Steny her down. But since I draft incorrectly and I'm already at a disadvantage by picking ML Ray early into the draft, I'm kind of at a loss here. I can't really S3 and S2 even though I kind of want to. I'm forced to just S1 with Concrelius, and I go for the strip here because if I can strip with Flitica on Senya and reset her, Like maybe Steny can take care of the team, of the rest of the enemy team before I lose. But unfortunately, Flitica either gets 15%ed or I got lucky with the strip, whichever one, take your pick. I do not know what to do because the push up isn't very impactful. So I just go for the push and just think like, yeah, designer a little bit's going to strip, but maybe I can get some impactful chip damage. And one of the synergies I thought of was that like Steny's S3 scales off debuffs. So if Steny lands her poison and she gets like the Venom proc from MO Ray's S2, like maybe I could one shot this designer a little bit, but no, I couldn't even do that. And then Senya didn't get reset, which is a fact I did not realize up until this point. And then my whole team just gets CC'd. And at this point, I was quite tilted. I'm pretty sure that this Edward is about to kill my Flitica here too. So that's kind of an L. Flitica goes down. I'm forced to auto attack into Senya, and I don't actually end up hitting Designer a little bit, so she gets to cut, or she doesn't get to cut. She gets to push up, but then she also resists the sleep, so my Steny is gonna die. So I just kind of rage quit here. But like Ebo Ray, despite everything, could have done something if he slept. But yeah, that's this video. I hope you enjoyed. I'm sorry that I couldn't get ML Ray to work, but he's just kind of a bad unit right now, and I would suggest you wait for buffs or don't pull him. But that'll be it for me today. I'll catch y'all next time.